carefully crafted illusion cracks. For weeks, Sally had been juggling half-truths with surgical precision. She told herself it was for the best, that protecting Adam from the fallout was an act of love, not betrayal. But lies had weight, and hers was finally pulling her under. What Sally hadn't told Adam was that her recent business wins weren't entirely clean. A confidential Newman Media leak, one that gave her just enough leverage to stay afloat, had fallen into her lap at precisely the right moment. She hadn't stolen it. She hadn't asked for it. But she used it. And now someone else knew. That someone had proof, and a vendetta. Sally's fingers trembled as she locked her phone. Tonight wasn't just about confession. It was about survival. Adam's fear isn't just about Sally. Adam leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing as he replayed every recent conversation in his head. Sally's evasive answers. Her forced smiles. The way she changed the subject whenever Newman Media came up. It wasn't just fear for their relationship tightening his chest. It was fear of history repeating itself. Adam had been burned before, by secrets disguised as protection, by love that turned out to be conditional. He'd sworn never again. And yet here he was, bracing himself for impact. His phone buzzed. "Sally, can we talk tonight? In person." Adam didn't hesitate. "Adam, I'm on my way." But even as he grabbed his coat, Adam couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that this conversation would change everything. The confrontation that changes the game. When Adam arrived at Sally's penthouse, the air was thick with tension. She barely had time to speak before the knock came, sharp, insistent. Adam frowned. "Are you expecting someone?" Sally's face drained of color. "No." Adam opened the door before she could stop him. Standing there was Audra Charles, eyes gleaming with thinly veiled satisfaction. "Well," Audra drawled, stepping inside uninvited. "Looks like the party's already started." Adam's jaw tightened. "What do you want, Audra?" Audra's gaze flicked to Sally. "The truth." Sally swallowed hard. Audra wasted no time. She laid it all out, the leaked documents, the timeline, the advantage Sally gained. She didn't accuse. She presented evidence. Adam turned slowly toward Sally, his expression unreadable. "Is this true?" The silence screamed louder than any confession. "Yes," Sally whispered finally. "But not the way she's making it sound. Love on the edge of collapse." Sally rushed to explain. She told Adam she hadn't orchestrated the leak, that she'd been cornered, that she panicked. She insisted she planned to tell him, eventually. Adam listened without interrupting, his face carved from stone. Audra smirked. "See, transparency is refreshing." Adam shot her a lethal look. "Get out." Once they were alone, the weight of betrayal settled between them. "You should have told me," Adam said quietly. "I was afraid," Sally admitted, tears streaking down her face. "Afraid of losing you. Afraid you'd see me as just another opportunist." Adam exhaled sharply. "I'm afraid too, Sally. Afraid that no matter how much I try to build something real, the truth always comes with an expiration date. That hurt more than any accusation. Genoa City holds its breath." By morning, whispers rippled through Genoa City. Audra's involvement ensured that the story wouldn't stay private for long. Newman Media buzzed with speculation. Victor's name was already being invoked behind closed doors. And Adam knew, this was only the beginning. Sally's deception had consequences that reached far beyond their relationship. Business alliances would fracture. Power plays would shift. Enemies would smell blood in the water. As Adam stared out at the skyline once more, fear coiled tightly in his chest, not just of losing Sally, but of what this scandal could unleash. Because in Genoa City, once a secret comes undone, it never stops at Genoa just one. City is no stranger to whispered warnings. It was only and getting carefully started. Chosen words. But when Jack Abbott and Jill Abbott Atkinson sit down for a private conversation, the tension is unmistakable. This isn't just family chatter, it's a strategic reckoning about two men who have a long history of chaos. Billy Abbott and Kane Ashby. The air is thick with concern, unspoken blame, and a growing fear that history is about to repeat itself in devastating ways. A meeting that was long overdue. Jack didn't invite Jill to Abbott Mansion for pleasantries. He pours 2 drinks but barely touches his own, pacing as Jill studies him with that sharp, knowing look she's perfected over decades in Genoa City. She already knows this is about Billy. It always is, but the addition of Kane's name sets her on edge. Billy's spiraling again, Jack finally admits, his voice low. And Kane's closer to him than I'm comfortable with. Jill stiffens. Kane Ashby. A name that carries baggage, secrets, and unfinished business. She reminds Jack that Kane has always had a way of embedding himself into situations just before they explode. Jack doesn't disagree, and that's what scares him most. Jill's warning. Kane never just watches. Jill doesn't sugarcoat her concerns. She reminds Jack of Kane's past, his tendency to play the long game, to act like a supportive friend while quietly positioning himself for leverage. Whether it's business, relationships, or power, Kane has always been opportunistic. Kane doesn't just stand by, Jill warns. He inserts himself. And Billy is vulnerable right now. That word, vulnerable, hits Jack hard. Billy has been struggling, juggling guilt, ambition, and his endless need to prove himself. Jill points out that Billy's emotional volatility makes him the perfect target for someone like Kane, who thrives when others are distracted or desperate. Jack hates how true it sounds. Billy's reckless patterns resurface. The conversation turns darker when Jill questions whether Jack has been enabling Billy without realizing it. Jack bristles at first, but deep down, he knows there's truth in her accusation. Billy has a history of self-sabotage, gambling with business deals, chasing validation, and lashing out when he feels cornered. Jill reminds Jack that Billy's instincts often override his judgment, especially when he feels underestimated or betrayed. And if Kane is feeding that insecurity, the consequences could be catastrophic. This is how disasters start, Jill says bluntly. Two men with unresolved grudges and too much pride. Kane's agenda, business or revenge. Jack admits he's been tracking Kane's recent moves, and none of them sit right. Kane has been asking questions, reconnecting with old allies, and showing an unsettling interest in Abbott's ventures. While he claims it's all about new opportunities, Jack senses something deeper, something personal. Jill wonders aloud whether Kane still harbors resentment over past losses, especially the times Billy came out ahead while Kane paid the price. Genoa City has taught them both that grudges don't fade, they evolve. And if Kane sees Billy as both a weakness and a weapon, Jack fears he may be right. Jill pushes Jack to make a choice. The most uncomfortable moment comes when Jill challenges Jack directly. Is he prepared to protect Billy, even if it means going against him? Jack hesitates. Family loyalty has always defined him, but so has responsibility. Jill insists that love doesn't mean blind support. Sometimes it means stepping in before someone burns everything to the ground. If Billy drags the Abbotts into Kane's mess, Jill warns, you won't get a second chance to clean it up. Jack knows she's right. The Abbotts have fought too hard to regain stability. One reckless alliance could undo years of work. A silent agreement forms. As the conversation winds down, neither Jack nor Jill feels relieved. Instead, there's a shared understanding that they're standing at the edge of something dangerous. Jill suggests keeping a close eye on Kane, quietly, strategically. No confrontations. No accusations. Just vigilance. Jack agrees, though he knows watching Billy unravel without intervening will be harder than any corporate battle. Before leaving, Jill delivers one final warning. If Billy feels cornered, he'll run straight into Kane's arms. And once that happens, you may not be able to pull him back. What this means for Genoa City. This tense exchange sets the stage for explosive fallout on the young and the restless. With Jack torn between brotherly loyalty and leadership, Jill stepping into her familiar role as the voice of hard truth, and Kane lurking in the background with unclear motives, the storm clouds are gathering fast. Billy's choices could ignite a chain reaction that affects not just the Abbotts, but the entire power structure of Genoa City. And Kane? He may be closer to getting exactly what he wants than anyone realizes. One thing is certain. Jack and Jill's conversation isn't the end. It's the beginning of a dangerous new chapter where secrets, ambition, and betrayal collide. And when Billy finally realizes he's been standing at the center of it all, in Genoa City, too late. Peace is never permanent, especially when Victor Newman and Jack Abbott are involved. For decades, these two titans have waged war across boardrooms, bedrooms, and family dinner tables. Their rivalry is legend, fueled by pride, grudges, and an unshakable belief that only one of them can truly sit at the top of Genoa City's power structure. But in a shocking twist that no one saw coming, Victor and Jack call a temporary truce, and the reason sends shockwaves through town. Kane Ashby has become a mutual threat. At first, whispers of the truce sound like a bad joke. Victor Newman shaking hands with Jack Abbott? Genoa City residents would sooner believe the coffee at Crimson Lights stopped being bitter. Yet the signs are impossible to ignore. Victor cancels a scheduled hit against Jabot's overseas expansion. Jack, in turn, quietly withdraws a lawsuit aimed at Newman Enterprises. The timing is too perfect to be coincidence, and both men know it. The truth begins to emerge during a tense, late-night meeting at the Abbott mansion. Jack pours 2 glasses of scotch, his expression guarded. "Let's be clear, Victor. This doesn't make us friends." Victor's lips curl into a knowing smirk. It never could, but desperate times call for strategic alliances. The name neither of them wants to say hangs in the air until Victor finally speaks it: Kane. Kane Ashby has always walked a dangerous line in Genoa City. Charming on the surface, ruthless underneath. Lately, though, his ambition has grown teeth. He's been quietly collecting information, leveraging old relationships, and inserting himself into deals that don't belong to him. Victor sees it first, as he always does. Kane has been sniffing around Newman Enterprises, asking the wrong questions, talking to the wrong people, and worst of all, learning secrets that could destabilize Victor's empire. Jack, meanwhile, has his own reasons for concern. Kane's sudden interest in Jabot's supply chain and overseas holdings doesn't sit right with him. Worse, Jack discovers that Kane has been feeding selective information to third-party investors. Enough truth to sound credible, enough lies to cause chaos. If Kane succeeds, both Newman and Abbott empires could suffer massive losses, while Kane positions himself as the savior who fixes the mess. That's when the unthinkable becomes inevitable. Victor and Jack agree, Kane has to be stopped. But neither man trusts the other. This truce is built on necessity, not goodwill. Every word is measured, every promise double-checked. They agree to share intelligence, nothing more, nothing less. Victor will use his vast network of informants to track Kane's moves. Jack will deploy Jabot's legal and financial experts to expose any cracks in Kane's operation. The plan is simple in theory and deadly in execution. Lure Kane into overplaying his hand. Victor suggests baiting Kane with a fake corporate vulnerability, an illusion of weakness at Newman Enterprises. Jack counters with a complementary move at Jabot, creating the appearance that both companies are scrambling to protect themselves. To Kane, it looks like opportunity. To Victor and Jack, it's a trap. As the plan unfolds, Kane takes the bait exactly as they predicted. He approaches Victor first, wearing his signature confident smile. Kane hints that he knows things that could hurt Newman Enterprises if they became public. Victor listens patiently, hiding his fury behind a mask of calm. Instead of threatening Kane, Victor feigns interest. He even allows Kane to believe he has the upper hand. Behind the scenes, Jack is already moving. He uncovers a trail of shell companies tied to Kane, businesses designed to hide money and manipulate stock prices. The evidence isn't enough to destroy Kane outright, but it's enough to make him nervous. Meanwhile, Lily begins to notice Kane's strange behavior. His late nights, secretive calls, and evasive answers raise red flags. Though Lily isn't fully aware of Victor and Jack's plan, her growing doubts add pressure to Kane's carefully constructed facade. Kane is running out of time, and he knows it. The turning point comes when Kane attempts to play Victor and Jack against each other, his fatal mistake. Kane leaks partial information to Jack, implying Victor is planning a betrayal. Then he tells Victor that Jack is preparing to strike first. Under normal circumstances, this tactic would work. Victor and Jack have spent years waiting for the other to blink. But this time they compare notes, and Kane's lies collapse. In a dramatic confrontation, Victor and Jack summon Kane to a neutral location under the pretense of negotiating separate deals. Kane arrives confident, unaware that the trap has already sprung. Victor lays out the evidence. Jack follows with legal documentation that proves Kane's manipulation. One by one, Kane's escape routes disappear. "This was always your problem," Jack says coolly. "You thought you were smarter than everyone else." Victor steps closer, his voice low and lethal. In Genoa City, ambition without loyalty is a death sentence. Kane tries to bluff, then to threaten, but it's too late. His investors pull out. His allies vanish. And just like that, Kane's power crumbles. The truce works. But peace, as always, is fleeting. Once Kane is neutralized, Victor and Jack stand alone again, victors but wary. They part ways without celebration, without smiles. The handshake they share is brief and cold. "This ends now," Jack says. Victor nods. It always does. As Victor walks away, both men know the truth. Their alliance was never meant to last. Yet for one dangerous moment in Genoa City history, two sworn enemies joined forces, and proved why they remain the most powerful players in town. And somewhere in the shadows, new threats are already watching, ready to test whether Victor and Jack's next war will be even more devastating than the last. The Newman ranch was unusually quiet. the kind of stillness that made Nick Newman uneasy. Silence, in his experience, always meant something was about to explode. He stood near the fireplace, hands shoved into his pockets, staring at the flickering flames as if they might offer answers. Behind him, the door opened, and Victoria's heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. "You wanted to see me?" Victoria asked, folding her arms defensively. Nick turned slowly. "Yeah, we need to talk. About the truce." Victoria's jaw tightened. Of course. There was no avoiding it. Victor's sudden ceasefire with Jack Abbott had sent shockwaves through the family, and neither Newman sibling believed for a second that it came without strings attached. "Let me guess," Victoria said coolly. "You think Dad's losing his edge?" Nick scoffed. "No, that's the problem. He's not." Victoria exhaled and moved closer, lowering her voice instinctively. "This truce isn't peace, Nick. It's strategy. Dad doesn't forgive, he waits." Nick nodded. "Exactly. And Jack should know that better than anyone." Victoria's eyes flickered with something dangerously close to concern. "That's what worries me. Jack's desperate right now. Kane's circling like a shark, Billy's unpredictable, and the Abbott board is already divided. Dad saw weakness and went in for the kill." Nick leaned against the mantel. "You really think this is about Kane?" Victoria hesitated just long enough to answer the question. "I think Kane is the spark. But Billy? Billy is the explosion." Nick grimaced. "Billy doesn't know when to walk away. He's already on thin ice after everything with the company, and Dad never forgets a betrayal." Victoria's thoughts drifted back to Victor's smug expression when he announced the truce. The way his eyes gleamed like a chess master already 10 moves ahead. "Dad wants Jack distracted," she said slowly. "If Jack believes they're working together, he won't see the knife coming." Nick straightened. "So what's the endgame?" Victoria met his gaze. "Control. Newman style." A heavy silence settled between them. Nick broke it first. "What about us? Where do we land when this thing blows up?" Victoria gave a short laugh. "You mean when, not if." Nick sighed. "I'm serious, Vic. Dad expects loyalty, but he doesn't care who gets caught in the fallout. Look at Adam. Look at me. Look at you." Her expression hardened. "I've already chosen my position. Newman Enterprises comes first." Nick shook his head. "That's what Dad trained you to say." Victoria bristled. "And you think you're above it?" "No," Nick admitted. "I just don't want innocent people crushed in the crossfire." Victoria's gaze sharpened. "There are no innocent people in Genoa City, Nick." Before he could respond, Victoria continued. "Jack is making a mistake trusting Dad. Billy's making an even bigger one pretending he's untouchable. And Kane." She paused. "Kane's about to learn what it means to underestimate Victor Newman." Nick frowned. "You think Dad's setting Kane up to take the fall?" Victoria nodded. "Kane will be painted as the aggressor. Jack will be left scrambling. Billy will react emotionally like he always does, and that will justify everything Dad does next." Nick ran a hand through his hair. "So this truce is basically a ticking time bomb." "Exactly." Nick's voice dropped. "What about Nikki?" Victoria's expression softened just slightly. "Mom knows something's off. She always does. But she believes she can manage Dad." Nick snorted. "Good luck with that." Victoria allowed herself a small smile. "You're not wrong." Nick moved closer, lowering his voice. "So what do we do?" Victoria studied her brother carefully. "We stay alert. We protect ourselves. And when Dad makes his move, we make sure we're not collateral damage," Nick finished. Victoria nodded. "Or worse. Pawns." Nick's eyes narrowed. "You think Dad's testing us?" "I know he is," Victoria said. "He wants to see who flinches first. Who questions him. Who stays loyal no matter the cost." Nick clenched his fists. "And if loyalty means destroying Jack? Or Billy?" Victoria hesitated again. "Then Dad will expect us to choose." Nick shook his head. "I'm tired of choosing between family and my conscience." Victoria met his gaze, her voice quiet but firm. "That's the price of being a Newman." Nick turned toward the window, staring out at the dark horizon. "Then maybe it's time the price gets too high." Victoria's eyes widened slightly. "Careful, Nick. That kind of thinking gets people exiled." He looked back at her. "Or it changes the game." Victoria studied him for a long moment, a calculating glint in her eyes. "If you're planning something, you'd better tell me." Nick smirked. "Wouldn't be much of a plan if I did." Victoria shook her head but smiled faintly. "Dad would be proud. Or furious." "Same thing," she replied. As they stood there, united by blood but divided by belief, one thing was clear. Victor Newman's truce with Jack Abbott wasn't the beginning of peace. It was the calm before a devastating storm. And when it hit, it would test every Newman bond to its breaking point. Because in Genoa City, truces never last, and fallout is always fatal.